And I even played the wrong video.
That was the ending. But hey, let's start with the end in mind. That is essential, right?
I love where you're going with that. So this is the thing is when we are doing new changes on the show, and welcome everyone to the Game Changing Work show. We are starting to do some shift. We're evolving, we're growing, we're changing, right? We're all about change. And so just to make sure all of you are aware of the Game Changing Work show and what we do, we're all about changing the game for the future workplace. And so we talk about our future trends. We talk about how to shift from outputs to an outcome-centric culture and the solutions around it. We talk about modern leadership and teaming. And then lastly, really getting into performance and well-being, knowing that we know it's important about both. And so today's topic that we're going to be talking about is how to make great attrition shift to the great can't even talk today to the great attraction. And we have our special guest, Alex Leon Flores, talent acquisition. We are going to introduce in the minute here. But as we know today, we have more than 19 million US workers and counting that have quit their jobs, right, since April 2021. And we have this is just the US statistics, and there's a lot more globally throughout the world. And so we know it looks a little different on a global standpoint, but there is a theme and trend that's happening out there today. And we know that companies are struggling to really address this problem. And the one thing is that they don't really understand why. And so part of our conversation today is really getting real and talk about what are the needs of employees out there and really understanding that employee experience. And so if Roxana, if you can introduce Alex before we get started
Oh,
here.
sure. Absolutely. I'm so happy that Alex is here with us today because, as you said, he works in talent acquisition and has a passion. And I've known Alex for a while now, but I know that he has a passion and a purpose of looking for potential in other human beings. He describes himself as such, while also doing his best to provide them with a place where they can develop. And this is what we're all about. And Alex, just as we are, is ready to change the game in today's workplace with fresh ideas that address the need to bring the human into the workplace. So I'm going to mute myself now because I have an alarm going on here. It's a test.
Now, we talked about a couple of statistics in our last show, which I think is related. When we talk about disengagement, and a Gallup report, it talked about 51% employees are disengaged from their workplace. And we know there's a cost to that as a business, right? They spend a lot of money paying for employee disengagement. And if you're running a business, we know the profitability impacts to it. But let's talk about the human side when it comes to this disengagement and really talk about what is happening out there in talent management and today, how we're addressing that. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Alex, on this one.
Well, this is what's interesting because we can look at it from two different perspectives, right? What from the talent acquisition perspective, I can look at it from the outside and talk about my own personal experiences with candidates coming to us, right? Coming to me and expressing what are their stories, their pain stories, I call them, because they tell you about what is it that they're exactly looking for on their next adventure, and what is their experience, either their current experience or their past experience, and why they're leaving those places. And so, I can talk about it from that perspective. But I mean, there's also the other component, right, from the inside of organizations, which, I recently just started the in a new workplace. It's an amazing, incredible organization, and But depending on which organization you're at, there's going to be different things that you will pick up, right? That you will start to understand, and what are the progresses. So, I mean, I think today probably the best focus, in my case, would be to talk about from the outside. What is it that we're seeing? In I think from the inside of organizations, you probably have much more experience and much better understanding, given your the side of the business that you support, right? As part of the game changers. So from the outside, there are a few things that are very they keep popping up, right, in my conversations with people. So the biggest thing, one of them is personal growth, and this is in career, and it doesn't mean growth in the ladder specifically, going above in the ladder. It's just having the capability to get out of the box that you have been placed. The
Mm.
being able feel feel, and that is a keyword, being able to feel like my contributions matter. And so that is a very, very big thing that keeps popping up on my conversations. um, and one factor that I have determined, with all of these data points from the stories, are communication is not happening enough across organizations. From the top down, from the bottom up, there is just not enough clarity as to what it is what are the available paths that I have. It just it is interesting to see these shifts, and also see how people are now reevaluating also concepts like success. What success means to me. It's not
Mm.
what we've been told. It is, you need to keep pushing up the ladder, you need to have this title, you need to have this much salary. It now comes down to, is this job fulfilling me? Am I doing something bigger, right? Am I contributing to society? And in the younger the generation, the more straightforward they are shooting the
Mm.
questions.
For sure.
um, they do not mind just saying, what, I want to know, from your experience, what is it that your organization is doing in regards to this specific issue. And usually those questions are based on their own unpleasant histories of what they from the
Yeah.
past.
And I'm glad you're mentioning that, because regardless of your age, what generation you come from, the facts are the facts. 50% of the workforce is that younger generation, and it gets growing more. Those are the millennial generation. And then we have, the younger generation getting out of college now, and or wherever they are coming from, and joining companies, right? The workforce out there. So it's it's something to be cognizant of and paying attention all the way up to a CEO level,
Yeah.
because that's the mix that's changing your culture in your organization, if you like it or not.
Absolutely. And it's funny. There's this study from McKinsey. I think like everybody's talking about it lately. And it's super funny to see. So the stats are 51% of employers think that the great resignation is related to compensation. So that's the number one reason they think is behind this. And then when you ask employees, they say that the number one reason why they leave is because they don't feel engaged in the conversation, and they don't feel that they see that their purpose in the organization. So it's like we're having these two parallel worlds, almost like employees like citing definitely purpose and meaning and inclusivity and everything that helps them feel motivated and engaged, and employers who look the other way and who look at the more, okay, nobody says that compensation is not going to matter, but what happens on top of that, because compensation is not the full package. Not anymore. Not with the millennials. I work with millennials a lot. Like for them, that's the number one thing, right? I want to feel that I'm doing something purposeful, and I want people around me to feel that they're doing something purposeful. And Gen Zs, they're not going to even talk to you if you don't explain to them how you, as an organization, fulfill a higher purpose. That's the first thing that they will ask you in an interview. People in an interview. I never asked this when I was interviewing at 20, in my 20s. So it's very interesting to hear you say that, because that's what we've been talking about all along, and we see that more and more.
Yeah, it amazes me what I do in a profession a lot. Obviously, I'm going into organizations when it comes to helping them, adopt agility. And I'm always interested in the company's culture. The first thing I ask is, what are your core values? Most of the conversations that I have in the organizations I go to, it's not part of their hiring process.
Yeah.
And so there's a conflict right there, is that there's a couple layers. So you have the company values, right? What do they, what are those? And then you have the person that they will be reporting to on an administrative, a people leader, of their values, right? And so you kind of have to peel it in a multi-layer, in my opinion, to see how they match up. Because if you have a leader that is all about naturally an overachiever, let me just label it that way, that's probably something they value really high. And so what I've seen a lot is that if they have the opportunity to hire the people directly, then they find those people. But if they've inherited these people, then I start to see where it rubs. And that's just one of many, many, many examples, because when you go through a lot of reorgs, which is what happens a lot in agile transformations, and I think just in general in organizations, they love to reorg. Let's be honest. That leaders inherited the people, right, when they start to move them. And so I always will hear, in these conversations, I just don't know how to motivate them. I don't know how to engage. They just don't work that way. Well, that's because you two have different values.
And if I and sorry for interrupting you, Veronica, and there's a very important factor here that I think is worth mentioning, and it goes back to communication. What is the new leader, okay, set in place? Does this person have the necessary communication skills to develop their rapport and to create a long-standing relationship where you can bring, their full selves to the conversation, right? And because without what I'm pretty sure, and this is just me making a guess, making an assumption, and I hate making assumptions, you know that. Roxana knows it. It's the, you know, a lot of the leaders don't have, this is completely new. This format of doing business in a much more humane way. They're
Yeah.
they're not used to it. Talking about, what, I'm not doing great this morning because yesterday I heard somebody passed away in my family. What are the leaders doing? Are they asking those questions? Are they approaching them? And you know what? Why don't you do you want to talk about it? It's simple as that. They're uncomfortable conversations for sure. But I mean, the goal is to create that relationship that allows you to understand where your colleagues and subordinates, and also your when you're managing up as well, so that you can create a place that allows you to have to create change, to be agile, because you're understanding that also life circumstances get in the way of business, and business gets in the way of life. It's the
Yeah.
same, it's all one.
Yeah. And I'm going to have a get real moment here. Gotta do it. Gotta do the V way here. Is that the system sometimes does not support that, because the way that people are promoted isn't necessarily that they're good with people and to develop them. It's because they're good at results, which is completely different, or they have a particular skill set. And so now the DNA and the culture and the system of actually how people are promoted is not helping, because there may be, no matter if you help coach them and help them become better leaders, that might not be their thing. And the only reason they wanted to be promoted is because that was the only way they thought they were going to get ahead in their career, kind of going back to your earlier comment. And then, yes, because sometimes in some organizations, let's just be honest about how they do their tiering. Like, you're a tier 2 and all these. I'm like, wait, what is that? It's because that's their pay scale.
Yeah. And that's why I see all the time, and that also because we're continuing to do things the way that we've always done them. And then, yes, that's the definition of insanity, where we're also expecting different results, which we're obviously not getting because we don't change the way that we do things, of course. But here's you have to know if your people are ready to be promoted. Why are you promoting them? Like, know your whys and understand where they want to go. If they want to go there, like, agree with them. Just what you said, Alex, at the beginning of the conversation. People, they don't even understand what their career path is, right? Absolutely no idea. Design thinking. I want to just say that I asked a question in the comments, and then thank you to Anzolina for replying, because I asked, and it would be interesting to hear your views whenever you're watching this, everyone. We're just creating a poll right now. What matters to you most when deciding to stay in a role or organization? And Anzolina was the first to answer, and she said career growth and appreciation. So ta-da, I'm looking forward to getting more comments, but I think, that's exactly it. So what is design thinking helping?
Yeah, and we know that and I shared HBR is coming out with their new live events of the new world of work and interviewing various folks. And so there was the one with the CEO of Microsoft. And he talked about, they actually with Viva, that's their goal with that product line. They just purchased Ally, which I do webinars with in collaboration with Icon Agility with OKRs, and they are actually integrating that because they see how everything is related when it comes to employee experience and performance.
Yeah.
But he talked about design thinking, and what that really means is we need to really empathize and understand people, and it takes effort.
Yeah.
It takes effort
and time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I hear a lot from team managers and so forth that I work with is that I don't have time. It's not that they don't care, they don't have time, because they are highly reactive and the system's not even supporting the ability to even make the time and to create these appropriate connections. So this is going to be leaning on the side of the people leaders out there, the frontline managers that feel like they're getting beat up out there about this topic. That, yeah, I would love to do that, but the system's not even supporting me to do those things, because you have me running around like a crazy person because the top level isn't getting their act together, and the demand that's coming down on me is ridiculous. So there is a back and forth here that I'm seeing, that this, again, I keep going back to the system not supporting. So it's almost like when we talk about design thinking for employee, it's not only you as a people leader design thinking, when we talk about teams and the people that are kind of like the boots on the ground. I'm even challenging the CEOs and the people that are making decisions on a strategic level. How well are you design thinking your middle management that is leading these executing groups of people?
Do they have the tools, right? I mean, that's it. You just said it, Veronica. Does the team higher up have the tools? Do they have the tools? Do they have the knowledge? Do they have a roadmap? Do they know? Do they understand truly? Right? Yeah, you said it.
And
well put.
I would say, I love what you said. Do they have the tools? I would just add, do they have the right tools? Because they might have some tools that they've been overusing maybe, and not even wondering what else is out there that's possible for me to do. And that's going to help me make that change and make that shift towards something different, because we don't operate in the same kind of environment. And we seem to forget that. We hear like, oh, let's get back. We're finally getting back to normal. No, we're not getting back. We're moving forward to whatever else it is that we need to create.
Yeah.
We know that the great reshuffling is just going to get worse. This whole is not going to get any better.
I love it, the fact that someone else is saying it but us.
Yes,
Because
thank you, Alex.
I love all these data, statistics out there, and I'm like, we don't even know yet. And I don't know. I feel like, oh, I loved your outfit from last Halloween. I should have been a gypsy this year, Roxana, because I feel like I'm about to get my crystal ball right now, and be like,
but we did
believe
see things last year in the crystal ball. It's exactly what's happening this year.
So those that are in denial, thinking this is a temporary thing,
yeah,
I know it's only just begun, folks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is almost like if you ever been living in Florida with hurricanes and you get the feeder bands of rains and stuff, but the hurricane's not in here and it feels like a hurricane because the winds are horrible. You know what I mean, folks? Those of you who've ever been in one. Well, the hurricane isn't here yet, is my point. It's just, this is just a warning sign it's coming.
Yeah.
And it has many years. I remember reading an article from Professor Adam Grant from Wharton University, and he said that this has started like 10 years ago. It's just the pandemic was like a switch, like a flip, that allowed for everybody to say, oh, okay, no, not anymore. The few people that had already started to consider their own personal choices, now it just tripled, and it just started to increase, exponentially, because people are talking about it.
Yeah, and I think
the case.
Yeah. I think the triggers, I always say stacking the pain, right?
Yeah.
And what happened, during this pandemic is they had a lot of time to think, for one, and two, it was whatever they needed to stack the pain to motivate them to actually get to action and pull the trigger. They're doing it. And here's the thing, and this is why I'm putting my crystal ball, is that there are people strategically planning for their move because they need to either save their money or they're trying to figure out their next move. And that's why, if you ever look at, I signed up for the LinkedIn, like life coaching and stuff, a while back, and I still get the notifications. There's a reason why I get them all the time, because people are still trying to think through things and they need help. And so I'm kind of curious with you, Alex, working on the talent acquisition side, is some of the conversations that you have is that, you get these planners, the people that I'm talking about, like they've been planning this for months, their next move, or people still are planning. You know what I'm saying? Like they're in the process right now.
They've been there's I'm talking to a few candidates that they've been planning their moves for years. It's just this was the only time that they saw their biggest opportunity to move in a direction that they felt it agreed with their values, and it just aligned perfectly with what they believe, and step away from their current choices, right? So if they're looking for an improvement in not only on the career side of things, but also in their personal lives. And this brings us back to all of the things like being part of a team where I feel like I belong and then feel appreciated, and I feel like there is flexibility and there is design thinking, because they're really trying to understand who am I as a person. I'm not just a number. What do I have the opportunity to grow in many directions? There's all of these little factors that you hear during the conversations, right? And they're okay.
I love that.
People should talk about those things when you
and they are, and I think this is the beauty of any crisis when it comes, is that first of all, it makes the invisible visible, and I know Veronica is like such a fan of that. And also it starts making the impossible possible. And we've seen that with virtual work and where that took us, and it takes us to the whole hybrid model and everything. But also after the crisis that we actually have time to transition properly, because crisis brings the change all of a sudden. And then we go through this process of transition, which we're in right now, where we really can plan to actually implement the change the right way. So it's not, this is why we're seeing a lot of planning right now.
Yeah, and
And
it leads
which
into
shouldn't
the
happen the old
caption
way. Exactly.
about
Which
goal
can happen the
setting.
new way.
OKRs are taking,
Yes.
a new leg and interested because now
Yes.
they're thinking, okay, if we're planning, we need to be thinking about goals and goal setting. And what does that look like now with our employees? And so we talked about design thinking, right? The empathy, kind of getting to know your employees. But now they're saying, okay, well, what are the approaches that we need that are related to really understanding and making an impact, right? Because we are dealing with uh, behavior changes, and it could be behavior changes that we need to do internally as an organization. And I'm going to leave it up to who needs to change their behavior. I'll let you all figure that one out. And then two is, we're always so used to doing it external, but we're realizing now we actually need to use these things on us inside our house, not externally for business, right? And so we are the internal customer. And so when you are helping folks, when you talk about talent acquisition, it's almost, this is the attractor side, right? It's the internal company doing design thinking, using user these outcome-centric approaches, and really understanding how they're attracting people. Because if we talk about diversity and inclusion, I want to feel connected to purpose and goals, and how does this line up with my personal core values? And four, which we didn't really talk a lot about, is autonomy. All of these approaches are very outcome centric. And so if you're a highly output driven organization, you already systemically are not supporting all these wonderful things that you're trying to move towards, because fundamentally you're not set up for it.
The system is based, a lot of the systems for a lot of those organizations are just very linear, where they expect already an outcome, right?
Like this.
The outcome is already expected. There is no ifs or buts. There is no alternatives. This is what the phrase, yes. This is the way we always do it.
Yeah, it's not experimentation. It's not learning how to fail and validate your assumptions, because at the end of the day, all these things, and again, we'll talk about that great resignation, the great restuff, whatever we talk, it's a great something. Like there's titles for all now.
All sorts of great.
Let's call it the big change.
The big change. I like that.
Yeah.
It's you don't know. You only know what you know right now. And so that's why I keep saying about these outcome-centric, approaches. It's not just the mechanics of building the right things for your customer. I'm basically saying is you have to internally structure yourself so you can adapt and learn and change your organization and be the organization that you dream of being. It's the only way.
Mm-hmm. And it's simple, but it's not easy. Nobody here is saying that it's easy.
Yeah. And speaking of not easy, this leads into energy and how people want to make an impact and contribute. Now, thank you for participating. Everyone that always comes on our show takes the GC index, which is the game changer index. And what it does is it measures the impact energy on the preferred way individuals, teams, and the collective of how they want to contribute and make an impact, right, to those desired outcomes that we've all been talking about, right? And so imagine when we look at our scores, which I'll be interested to what your learning was around it. Oops, what happened there? You might have to share again, Roxana. Okay. And you're like, okay. We're so adaptive.
No problemo.
Drum roll. Imagine where our dominant energies lie. Yeah. Yeah. So Is it working?
Just keep the drum roll
Okay.
because it
So
doesn't
there's
work for
so
me
let me
now.
just describe while you're bringing it up is there's 5 proclivities, as we call them, of preferred ways that people want to make an impact and contribute. And so we have people that are very centered around what we call a playmaker. We have people that are all about challenging this status quo, doing different, or natural change agents. And then you have very strategic, big visionary. They allow you to actually see the big picture and make those plans, while you have other people that are highly task oriented, that either are the builders, right? They're all about the results and execution and seeing them, while you have other people that are about excellence and doing the right thing. So not only they're executing, but they want to execute it well, and they believe in continuous improvement because you can always do better. And so you have all these, there we go. Oh,
Yep.
quit teasing,
No?
quit teasing. Okay, here we go. So you have all these energies that we're talking about, and now you are looking at 3 dominant game changers. So it's obvious in the way that we speak. We're all about the possibilities. We're all about driving change, hence the name of our show and our purpose and mission in game changing work. And we're all about challenging the status quo. Does that make sense of the energy that you're probably feeling when you watch our show? Is we're a collective of game changers. And so Alex, it when you probably may have already known this, but I'm very interested of Roxana and in the two of you, your conversation when you delighted us to do this with us before you came on the show.
I'll let Alex, because we had a great conversation the other day about the profile. And I told Alex, even before I saw the results, I was thinking I would be so surprised if he's not a high game changer.
Well, he reeks game changer.
So exactly. So I couldn't have a surprise. But the cool thing about it is that, Alex, you said that this wasn't surprising to you either. So how did you resonate with that? What resonated most for you?
The game changer resonated, and I think you know a little bit more about my story, Roxana. We talked about
Yeah.
it in your show. And I think it has to do with my own story in my past and what I had experienced growing up, being a minority within a minority, right?
Mm-hmm.
Growing up. So it's just so that for me, the systems around me and the interactions and the relationships, I did not understand why they weren't what I did not fit in the normal, right? And why I would always approach people and ask why are things like this? And and that was a big it was a great tool, asking those questions, what if, or why is this happening? And that allowed me to really understand that it's just because I see possibilities. I don't
Yeah.
I don't think the world is black and white. It is gray, million shades of gray. I like to think more of it as a rainbow. But but I mean, growing up, that's exactly it. Growing up, it was for me. It's just being instilled on me from my parents as well, to a certain level, the curiosity, right? And to dig deeper into, whatever you don't know that might be interesting. Why don't you tell us, and we'll find a way for you to read, even if we don't know anything about things, right? So, and that was instilled in me. So that thought process, that came every now and again about, what is this? What would happen? What does it mean? What if, and what if I were to apply this in my personal life? And then I would start connecting the dots, and I think it came from since I was younger, for sure. The game
Now, do you
changing.
ever feel that you were misunderstood? People didn't get some of the things, your ideas? I know I felt
All
that
the
way
time.
my entire life, that I was always
Mhm.
10 steps ahead, and I'm like, why don't you get what I'm saying?
100 times. It's just, during my career, it has happened. Especially at the very beginning of my career. when I started just in the corporate world. And it was, for me, I was lucky that I was working for somebody who was very open-minded in regards to, especially because I was working also in marketing and advertising industries. That is completely experimental. That is a completely creative, experimental type of industry. Sorry, yeah, industry. So, I was lucky in that regard. But then jumping to other places, I noticed that people did not like that. They
Yeah.
is they did not like to be questioned.
I can completely relate.
For
I
sure.
jumped a lot of jobs when I was a full-time employee.
And I mean, at the time, I really I talked about it. I didn't necessarily I will present it. What are the issues? What are the challenges that were happening across the organization with the team, with higher ups, etc. But people higher up, above, they didn't like to hear those. They're like, no, 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 everything's gorgeous, everything's beautiful. It's just, let's keep on going. I was
I
like,
know what I'm doing.
Oh yeah,
mm-hmm,
exactly. And if it's not broken, let's not fix it because it doesn't need fixing. And that's where, like, I want to ask you,
Business as
Alex, when
usual
it comes to,
mentality.
yeah, business as usual, which is not anymore right now. So,
I'm
um,
loving it.
when we talk about diversity and inclusion, because that's a big topic, and all of the organizations, they just display it all over the place. But then you hear people like you who are high game changers, who might be asking uncomfortable questions, but absolutely necessary and vital questions in the organization. And there's no place for them to ask these questions because nobody wants to hear those.
And that's
So if
not
you were
inclusive.
exactly, so if I wanted to ask you how you see, because for instance, this is a tool that helps you see who do you have in your organization that might have a game changer impact and that might be asking those questions. And are you allowing them to ask those
Mm.
questions?
mm-hmm. And that's important. And it goes back to communication again from the very beginning.
Yes, yes. But you need to understand, because a big part of the communication bit, this is what we don't get. It's the environment. Communication happens differently in different environments. So if you're not creating the right environment for the right kind of communication to happen, you're not going to have it. You can have people, individuals who are skilled, who can communicate, but if you're not creating the environment where they actually can express that communication and understand each other, it's not going to work.
It's also about where I've seen a lot because I've used this is displacement. So
Yeah.
we will always have positive intent and want to do good and contribute in the company, and you'll be asked to do something. And so I found a lot of people in roles that when I have done their impact energies, it's actually misaligned. It's not where they want to be.
Yeah.
Or I should say should be,
Mhm.
because we're not getting the best out of them. And kind of getting back to that word diversity inclusion, it's almost where the typical things that we talk about, the gender, the ethnicity, and all of that removes those biases. I mean, if you Google, there's a reason why this sits up at the top, right, when it comes to diversity inclusion. But what I really appreciate about this, and obviously this is probably coming from a game changer, so the two of you can relate, is that divergent thinking that we need so much out there today, that assimilated convergent type of thinking only is what's acceptable. And so people shut down, and kind of going back to even the start of our show of why people are wanting to leave is because they don't feel like they have a voice. And so regardless, if you line up all the check boxes in those diversity questionnaires, your ethnicity, this and this and this, and you look pretty on paper, you still could be the person crying inside because that energy you have, that culture doesn't support it. I mean,
And
I'm a perfect living person, and so are you, Alex, being a game changer.
yeah,
We're alienated all the time out there.
and
And I
you
say
lose talent.
alienated because we are shut down. They don't want to hear us.
Exactly. Like that's why people leave, because they don't feel engaged and motivated and included. Like you lose talent. You might have people with game-changing impact for your business that are not making that impact in your business, and you're losing time and money and energy.
Now, Roxanne and I have talked about if we probably should have a game changer support network group because they're
For
the
sure.
only ones that understand us.
Alex, you have to join us.
I'm in.
Because
I'm
the
in.
sad thing about is, like, you'll have some
Yeah.
companies that get this, they support it. We're not talking
Yeah.
about them. We're talking about the companies that drive these people away, and they actually need them in their companies today because they're the ones that are going to help them change the game for the future. They're the ones that actually think of beyond and the possibilities in different ways about something, and they're going to challenge the way you think and act about your approaches. And so if you're driving them away, and there's, I wonder if we actually could do a statistic research on how many game changers are out there, part of this great resonation, if they have a mid to high
Wow.
range of game changer, because
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, they're the ones that are first to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for many reasons, whatever. But I mean, it goes many.
And
many
they're the
reasons
the
according to-
last ones you want to lose. Yeah.
And I think it also comes down to the type of industry, the person may be coming from.
Yeah, that's true.
The older the type of industry we're talking about, the more likely there's going to be the boys club or these little different
Yeah.
ways of managing people, and there's no such thing as vulnerability. That is not a real thing here. We don't talk about it. There is no there's
Well,
no
yeah.
failing here. There is no such
Exactly.
thing as failure. Or the other one that I'm pretty sure you have heard. We appreciate failing, but we don't. We want you to fail, but then the person fails, and it's like, but no, that's not what we wanted. It's like,
You fail, but then go somewhere else. Feel
like,
free to fail
okay.
once.
Well, when I see organizations spend a lot of hours, and they joke about this too, because they know like something feels kind of a little wrong and off about it. When they spend hours putting together a beautiful PowerPoint presentation that lasts only 3 minutes because they're so worried about it not looking good, that already tells me the culture.
Yeah. And then, to be honest, like, I come from a high polishing culture. Like, I worked in international law firms, so those are people and they need to be, because they're experts and they need to provide sound solutions to their clients. But what I also see, especially with the knowledge industry, is that they've had to adapt the most. Like, this is they had to find ways to serve their clients no matter what, and from anywhere, basically. So that was one thing that just had to happen overnight. And
Yeah.
I bet you it was the game changers in those organizations who suddenly had the environment to bring this kind of impact that was so much needed in those organizations that allowed it.
And again, if we are practicing design thinking and outcome-centric approaches, there's a difference between your external customer and your internal customer. And so when you say we have high polishers and lawyer, I can understand why you need to do it externally.
Mm-hmm.
But internally, if you are you bringing that behavior inside your culture, it's going to hold you back because you're treating yourselves like you do in the outside world, which is not going to help you. So there's a difference between internal and external customer. It's almost like you being at a family gathering or a friends gathering that you know really well, right? And you are going to probably do some silly things that if a stranger comes, you might not necessarily do because they don't get you. Well, in an internal company, you have to have at least some feeling to be able to let go, is my point. Whereas if you're going in the outside world and your nature of your business is a little different, that you can kind of change that, tweak it a little bit, make it more polished. I sometimes think there's an identity crisis where they feel like they have to, and you're kind of pointing that out, Alex,
there
earlier,
is.
that they don't know how to switch. They don't.
Yeah, it's almost like you need two different teams. One's just for the, and I mean, that's not a bad idea. Just have one, the internal team, and then you have the external team, and both sides, they need to get together. And it comes back again also to diversity. Something that resonated with me, Roxana, earlier, is this group of this organization, policy organization you mentioned, they were right in the place at the time, right place, right time. But I have a feeling, and please let me know your thoughts on this. I have a feeling that while they were going through the change, there was a big diversity and inclusion component in there, trying to understand everything happening around, all of the inputs of information from their clients, right? And I have a feeling that there wasn't this is one single leader saying this is how we're going to do, and this is what we're going to try, and this is how, what we expect. I have a feeling that it was there's 10 people, let's bring all of the topics, let's figure out what the issue is, and let's go from here.
Yeah, that's the best. In the best case scenario, that's where you get feedback from your people and from your internal clients and from your external clients.
Yeah, that's
and see what you need to do. That's what you need. That's the first data that you need to have a look at. If you're only looking at your processes and systems that you've been using before, and how can you use them again, how are they serving your internal and external clients?
And this is where they are developing tools that can provide real-time mechanisms now. And so that's why, there are a lot of tools out there that may or may not be common mainstream, but I have a feeling now with Microsoft, with Viva, they're going to change the game and make it mainstream, because most of large organizations are have Microsoft tools in-house, and so they usually will adopt them. And so I can tell you right now, this is the perfect time, all of you out there, when you start seeing a large company like that invest money on tools that are starting to move in that direction, OKRs integrated with Viva, pay attention.
Yeah,
seriously, because it's sending a message out there. It really is.
Yeah, pay attention and think about what you want to do. Like when you talk about what are those tools serving you, like why are you using them? What do you want to do? What do you want to make happen?
Yeah, you don't just do them just to do them, right?
You don't just do them and that's what I see. Like a lot of companies look at, oh, this is what we've been used to doing, this is what we've had, so how can we get back to that? Don't think this way, because it might affect you sooner than you even expect.
Yeah, I know that we've gone over on our time
and
today,
we could go on and on and on.
I'm realizing this is just like we're having a party here and we just don't want to end it. But
typical game changer when they talk ideas.
So those of you that might not be aware, we do have a LinkedIn game changing work page. We're starting to build it out more. We'll share content, either create original content or share interesting content that we see is relevant and applicable. And really start to build that out more. Hopefully, soon we'll even have a newsletter that will accompany with our live event. So we're really trying to build this out more. So follow us on LinkedIn, our Game Changing Work page. Obviously driven by Roxana and myself. But we also have a cool thing that we're trying to start doing, is that we love creating connections off of LinkedIn. So we are experimenting. We'll probably grow this out more. I don't know if any of you ever read about LinkedIn locals, what does that look like, and try to get offline. So book time for a casual coffee chat with the two of us, and who knows who else we'd bring to the party. You can get on the calendar there and book time as well. Also, next week, we got some good stuff here. We're going to continue with that outcome-centric theme because we're trying to nudge all the different practices and getting people to move in that direction. Of course, what can you say with game changers, right? So we are going to have a guest that's a product coach and author, Joanna TV, and she's going to talk about top 3 reasons why you need to shift to outcome-driven roadmaps, and these are product roadmaps. So come join us for that. So thank you so much, Alex. You have to come back.
Yeah. See?
Of course. Anytime. Anytime.
You have to come back.
I mean, you have to come back because that's going to be definitely a valuable conversation moving on into 2022. Because we need to talk about this stuff, and that's why we also wanted to connect with people outside of the show, because everybody's going through some kind of transition and transformation right now. So the more we can help with that, because with Veronica's background in business agility and performance, and my background in team-based leadership, we're really, really into this. And that's why we love bringing people like you, Alex, who come from the industry, who can share.
Yeah, your perspective is valuable.
Exactly. More helpful information. So we have to have you back.
And now, since we know you're a game changer, we have a really strong affinity towards that. Come on. I'm going to self-admit if Roxana won't. Because you get us, Alex. Now that's why it makes sense.
And I know you speak the language of the people who are watching this show as well, right?
Oh,
so
gosh, yeah.
That's who we do this for. So come join us again, everybody.
Yeah, and what would be interesting when you come back is to see if the trend is still staying.
Yeah.
From the people that that you work with, what you're seeing out in the market, because again, we only know what we know. And so I would love to do a part 2 if you're interested to go, okay, well, is this still happening? What are your thoughts now? Because I'm sure you're going to have one is new ideas and probably share some current trends of learnings that you've had as you talk to more people and work with them.
Yeah,
absolutely. That would be very interesting. I would love to participate maybe in about 6 months or so.
Yeah.
To see where the shift, because right now we're at the end of the year. There's many changes still happening, but then the holidays are on top of it. It's just a weird combination. But January and February, that's when I'm very, very interested to see.
Yeah, we probably should do at the end of first quarter what is starting to take shape. Maybe we'll plan for that if that sounds like a good plan. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. And then I will actually use the right outro video now. Yay!
Let's go, Veronica.